Much. Thank you, Lawrence. Hello, and thank you to all our participants, 140 people and counting on Zoom. I'm sure there's some on Facebook, and there's a call-in listener, we were told. Welcome, everybody. Greetings from Tel Aviv. It's really great to be here back with everybody. Every couple weeks we're here. Thank you, all of you who's engaged me on my emails on Fridays. Many of you did on this last email. We're sort of in a weird period here, coming out, not coming out, locking down, not locking down. Crazy protests are frequent here, and it's hot, very hot. My app said today that it was 86 and it was 65% humidity and felt like 94, but I swear it was 90% humidity and felt like 100. And we're just beginning a big heat wave here, the Sharav. So, you know, things are hot in the summer, and we're going to get hotter today with going down to the Negev with Meidad Goren, our birder from Sde Boker. Meidad will be with us tonight to talk about birding conservation in the Negev, how we keep track and protect all those desert birds. And I think he's going to talk about his own personal journey from South Africa to the Negev. And we're excited to hear him tonight. Lawrence is our back office as usual, hosting these webinars, and Alan Kassal in Jerusalem from the Jerusalem Bird Observatory is with us, going to be answering questions on chat and in the question feature here in Zoom. Welcome, welcome, all of you, up to almost 160 people. Thanks very much for being here. Please, thank you very much for your support and your interest. Remember, we have offices in New York and in Toronto. Our dedicated staffs there, Robin in New York, and Avi and Michael in Toronto, and our chairman of our local NGOs, the American and Canadian Friends of SPNI, and in the States and in Canada, also in the UK and in France. We're thrilled to be coming to you from Jerusalem, from Modi'in, from Sde Boker, and from Tel Aviv. So thank you very much, Meidad. Take it away.
Okay. Can everybody hear me? All is well? Yes, can you hear me? Lawrence?
We hear you.
Good. So hello everybody. My name is Meidad, and I'm the manager of the Ramat Negev Birding Center. And I've been asked to talk a little bit about bird conservation in the Negev, and I thought, how am I going to do that? And I decided to sort of tell a story of the last 15 years, my story, how it led me basically to do some bird conservation work for the SPNI and the NPA in the Negev. At the end of the presentation, there will be some time for questions. I'll be happy to answer any of it. And let's start right away. So basically, I've been fascinated by birds all my life. I was born in Mexico, but came in a very early age with my family to Israel, and landed in kibbutz Negev, which is in the north part of the country at the shores of the Lake of Galilee. And it's just very easy to become a bird watcher there, or a naturalist or nature lover, where you're basically surrounded by nature of all kinds, if it's a lake or mountains. But my fortune was around my high school when I decided to go to the Negev and study in the high school there, in environmental studies, environmental high school there. That basically changed my life, I could say that, for the first time. This is where I fell in love with the desert and all its inhabitants, if it's flowers and mammals and birds and everything, and especially birds. I took my passion for birds there to, we could say, to a different level, to the next level. It's quite common.
Your sound's a bit dodgy, so do you just try and come a bit closer to the microphone, please?
All right, sorry. Can you hear me now better? Is it okay?
Yeah, I think that was better.
Okay, I'll tell me again if it's fading up.
Okay.
So basically, at during my high school, I got into birding a little bit deeper and started to ring birds and watch birds in their natural habitat. And was very happy then. After a few years, did my army service and went to work for the SPNI as a hiking guide, learned a little bit more of different aspects of nature and a little bit about conservation. And in 2005, this is where my sort of my path changed a little bit, and I decided to check a little bit the outside world. And my life took me to South Africa. And in South Africa, I was based in Cape Town, looking for work, and I was lucky to find work as a marine observer. Basically, I was offered to do a job, quite a hard work. The job is to go on board this kind of ships, fishing ships from all over the world, especially from the east, but a lot of South African boats as well, and just basically record everything. Now, it's not that I like to record things, but that was an amazing opportunity to meet the ocean wildlife, and especially the seabirds. And maybe albatrosses, petrels, shearwaters, all this kind of birds you don't see from land, and other mammals as well, marine mammals, whales, dolphins, seals, everything was there. And South Africans hold some of the richest waters in the world. And for me to get paid and to do and to be able to see that, that was amazing. And the first trip, which was almost 15 years ago, in the end of 2005, was life-changing for me. I was privileged to have very close encounters with some of the most magnificent birds in the world, including these albatrosses, southern royal albatrosses, which is one of the biggest birds, flying birds in the world, with a wingspan of more than 3.5 meters. You calculate the feet, I think it's close to 10 feet or something. And huge, huge birds, fascinating, with an amazing life biology. Very rare for me, for a land desert birder to see. But this 1 month trip at sea was just fantastic for me. And after 2 weeks at sea, where basically my job was just to record everything that happens on the boat, how many fish are caught and measuring fish and all that, it took a little bit of a turn there, when I started to see these sights of dead albatrosses coming up on a hook. I came back to land after a month, and I was mixed feelings. I was very thrilled to have encountered some of the rarest albatrosses in Africa at the time, and also with bags full of dead albatrosses. I wanted to do something about it, but my job was just to be an observer, and life sometimes just take you there. And I was offered to start and work for a team that the whole idea of this team is to tackle this specific problem and try to save the albatross. And so I became the first instructor of the Albatross Task Force, and started to work. Now, just to explain the problem, for those of you who are not aware or not familiar with this, these albatrosses forage behind fishing boats. There are different kind of, obviously, a lot of different kind of fishing vessels and fishing methods and targets fish as well. But this specific section aims for large game fish like tuna, like swordfish, even sharks. And the technique is basically setting long lines, sometimes can be more than 100 kilometers long, with hooks, with baited hooks that slowly sink. And the birds that forage behind the boat learn that these baits can offer them rare food opportunity, like fish or like squid. And they try and nail and try to steal the bait from the hook. And what happens is that they basically just, if they swallow the fish hole, the bait hole, they get hooked and drown together with the hook. This specific problem caused the whole seabirds, seabird population in the world, mainly albatrosses, but also petrels, shearwaters, and other seabirds, to plummet. The population just plummeted seriously, and became a group of a very endangered birds. Albatrosses, for example, there were times where almost all species of albatrosses in the world were close to or basically endangered and under threat. Now, this bird, just a couple of words, these birds start breeding very late, sometimes at the age of 10 or 11, and they only lay one egg, and sometimes even one egg every 2 years. So breeding process is very, very slow, and to lose one albatross on the bait means that there might be a chick that won't get food and starve to death. And obviously the whole breeding season is lost. And so numbers just basically went down very, very quickly. The estimate was that 100,000 albatrosses are killed every year just because of the pelagic longline bycatch. So what do we do? BirdLife International initiated the Global Seabird Program, and the Global Seabird Program was a group of experts that tried to deal with this problem. The solutions were there. There's some technical solutions like setting the line at night where albatrosses can't really see the bait, or it's harder for them to see the bait. Or the other methods were to put some weights close to the bait so it will sink fast, or setting a bird scaring line that will scare the birds away and won't allow them to steal the bait. The thing is, how do you make that happen? The solutions are there, but somebody needs to go to sea and talk to the fishermen and try these methods and make sure it works and make sure that people and fishermen actually use them. And so that was my job. I was joined later by some more colleagues from South Africa, and later on from Namibia and South America. A few countries followed us, and we have become a sort of like an international team that every team works with the local fisheries. And of course, it was also a pleasure just to be able to see many, many species of seabirds. Some of them are rare and some of them less, but just fantastic, fantastic sights. I collected data. Yeah?
This is Alan. Can you try coming a little closer or speaking up? People really can't hear you.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Sorry for the interruption.
Okay, I'm sorry if somebody missed some of what I said. I will try to talk a bit louder. Alan, is okay?
Yep, it's much better, thanks.
Okay. Cool, I'll try not to fade out. We collected data, spent many, many days at sea with the fishermen, created relationship, bonding, and eventually also doing some PR work, raising funds. One of my job was to go overseas and talk to people and meet some people. This is not a wax doll. This is the real thing. This is Prince Charles, who is a great supporter of the Albatross Task Force and the whole program. He actually initiated it. So he asked to get a sort of brief on what's happened. So we gave him a talk and met him, and it was nice. Also being part of all the decision-making committees, meetings, spending a lot of time at fisheries, not only with fishermen, not only at sea, but also when they come to land, and just learning a lot, and also making some nice friendships to help you promote the idea. I can say that after 5 years of working there, numbers of birds that were killed dropped really, really nicely to basically below the red line that you can see here, which according to scientists, if that sort of rate stays, it means that the albatross can maybe basically be saved and the population can increase again. So, so that was the time for me in 2011. to go back home to Israel. I thought that 5 years with the task force, with Albatross Task Force was great. It was fantastic. I learned a lot about conservation, conservation work, and I felt like I want to do it back home. Luckily enough, I was offered to come to the Negev and start a birding center, an educational, conservational birding center. And of course, I can't say no to a birding center to come and to be part of a project like that. And so I came back to Israel. And what I found is that there's a lot of changes. Things are not the same as when I left, obviously. And my first few years were spent in learning, a lot of learning. And this is what I'm going to talk about in the second part of my talk, my journey back to Israel, left the albatrosses. I missed the albatrosses very, very much. Spending a whole, let's say, I think I've spent about 370 days at sea altogether with albatrosses almost all the time around you. I miss them and I hope to see them soon. So I came back to Israel and was sent immediately to the Negev. Literally after a week of saying hello to friends and my mom and my family, I drove to Sde Boker and started to work January 2011. And for those of you who are not familiar with the Negev, we could say that basically this map sort of indicates what is the Negev desert. If we can put Elat Mountains a little bit outside, that's someone else's territory, then the Negev is the largest region of Israel, and some would say close to 2/3 of the country is the Negev. And there's one birding center in Sde Boker, and which means for me that I have a vast area to work at. The Negev is a desert, which means most of it less than 150, 200 millimeters of rainfall a year. So it's very dry, with cold, very cold in winter, very hot, cold at night, hot during the day. Winters are rather cold, with a few showers, and very dry and hot and warm during the summer. If we look back a little bit, look out of the Negev, 65 species in Israel are endangered out of 215 more or less breeding birds. And in the Negev only, we found 20 species that are at risk, which means if things won't change, eventually they will be extinct, and we don't want that. Out of these, 8 species are critically endangered, which means there need to be an action to save these species, and I will try to tell the stories of some of them. But before that, we need to try to understand what the changes that the Negev has been going through. And for that, we need to go back to 1979. Some of you might remember this picture, which was taken in Camp David, 1979. Prime Minister Menachem Begin and President Anwar Sadat with Jimmy Carter signed a peace agreement. And what's that got to do with what I'm talking about? And who is this Dr. Uzi Paz, very dear and important figure and person, who was at the time the main, we could say, today we could say ecologist or a scientist of nature parks authorities. At the time it was nature authorities. And what's the connection? Well, the connection is that after the peace agreement, the Israeli army needed space, needed territories to practice. And what's better than the Negev? Now, nature parks authorities at the time realized that, and they were ready for that. And a very, very rapid process of declaring as many nature reserves as possible to protect the nature in the Negev were established. And what you can see in this map, that's the Negev. Red, all the red spots are basically firing zone or training zones. The green are nature reserves, and the sort of hockey green, if you say it like that, are areas that are both firing zone or training zones and nature reserves. So if you look at this, there is hardly any white marks, and these white marks are what basically is available for an establishment or for men to come or for started trying to involve or build cities and villages or kibbutzes or anything. There's hardly any space. So the ironic thing is that the largest region in the country has the less opportunities for establishment. So this is the situation, and basically there are three areas where the large region, the regional council of Ramat Negev, which holds most of the areas of the Negev, can try and develop. If it's Nitzana region, if it's Redim and Mashabe Sadeh, and Sde Boker region. There is Mitzpe Ramon here, and there is Yerucham and Dimona, are cities. And that's the main cause. This map shows brilliantly this pressure that is there on wildlife in the Negev, and the main thing that we need to deal with. So, and how that affects the birds. So let's start at the top. This picture is very, very emotional because the top two, for those of you who are familiar with raptors, these are the 4 vultures that used to roam the country roam Israel's skies until the 80s. And the one on the left, this one is the lapid-faced vulture, and the lammergeier. These two, with a wingspan of close to 3 meters, are giants. And the one on the bottom, the Egyptian vulture and the griffin vulture, slightly smaller. The griffin vulture is slightly smaller, with the Egyptian vulture the smallest. These two are regionally extinct, which means they disappeared from the country, from the Negev. They bred only in the Negev. The lammergeier mainly in the Judean desert, and the lapid-faced vulture mainly in the central southern parts of the Negev and the Arava Valley. And suspiciously, they disappeared around the middle of the 1980s. 1986, 1987, they were gone. Quite soon after the peace agreement with Egypt. Now, if it's related or not, we can discuss later, but that's a fact. The two at the bottom are critically endangered in Israel, with a small population of close to 50 or around 50 pairs from each species, mainly in the desert these days. So we have a situation here where we are basically close to losing our vultures, which are very important for the ecosystem as they feed on dead animals. And
Meidad, can you go back to the vultures for a second and say which ones are which?
Yeah. So top left, lapid-faced vulture with a subspecies that is endemic to the Middle East. Top right, lammergeier. This bird is also found in Europe and Asia and Africa. Both of them stopped breeding in Israel in the mid-80s. Bottom left, the Egyptian vulture, which is critically endangered both in the world and in Israel. And griffin vulture, which is critically endangered in Israel. We're losing it, and the reasons for that. This photo, by the way, was taken by Bill Clark, if I'm not mistaken, the beginning of the 80s, a pair of lapid-faced, one of the last ones. And why did it happen? So you can imagine how disturbing it is to get close, if you get close to a nest that is on the tree, on your cashew tree. So disturbance when there more and more activity around the nest sites of the big raptors, they can just desert the nest or just scare and leave it for a while, and that could be crucial for the chicks or for the eggs. Later on, when there's more and more development, there's more and more power line, electricians are becoming a very, very disturbing phenomenon and quite common until today. Birds is too long, too big to sit on a wire, and when they open the wings, they just close a circle and get hit. These lines also cause collisions. These birds don't always see the lines. They sometimes forage when they fly, meaning they fly straight and looking down at the ground to look for food and just collide with the lines. Poisoning, which is another disturbing issue. A lot of the dead carcass-eating birds, when they see something dead, they will come and eat it. They can find the food quite quickly, and very, very soon there will be a massive group of birds around one carcass. If that carcass is poisoned for different reasons, then the results are devastating, and we're still facing with this problem today. Shooting, that happened mainly in the 50s and 60s, when there was not a lot of awareness for conservation, and bored soldiers in the Negev, which at the time was isolated and far from anyone, were just shooting for fun. Basically, a large 3 meter long bird, 3-meter wingspan, is quite a nice target for a lot of people. The list is long, and this is what really is irritating, but that's a fact. Shortage of food, where basically there is development, and when there's less and less wildlife because of more and more development, human development, that means the vultures have less food around, and they basically can't make it, and they can't breed well, and breeding success falls, and the population shrinks. So this is the list for the vultures, but other raptors such as this golden eagle and sooty falcon, this is the sooty falcon and the golden eagle, are also threatened. The golden eagle is critically endangered in Israel, with around not a lot, the number is not much higher than 11, 12, depends which year, of 12 pairs in the country, and all of them are in the south, in the Negev. So this is a bird that we're actually fighting for survival. The sooty falcon, which is a very interesting bird, doing much better in Israel, thanks to the fact that most of the population breeds in nature reserves. What I have to, I forgot to say earlier, but this Dr. Uzi Paz, if you remember the guy, the same slide with Anwar Sadat and Jimmy Carter and Begin, is that when he was asked to choose areas to protect as conservation, the knowledge at that time about the wildlife in the Negev was minimal, was very, very little. He didn't know which areas are important, and what he chose was just the pretty areas. And he knew that cliffs are pretty for people for hikers, and everything that was attractive for people, for hikers or for travelers, they initiated a nature reserve there. And I called him and I asked him how, when I called him to I think it was about a year ago, I wanted to give a talk about it, and I just wanted to ask him, and I called him and I asked him, how did he decide? And he said, well, that's how I decided. I just looked at the areas and tried to figure out which one are more attractive for people, if it's a few springs. And some birds did benefit from that, like these cliff nesting birds, like sooty falcon, but some of them not. And we're going to talk about them a little bit later. So so we're fighting for these birds, and we're fighting. There's a beautiful joint project, joined with the Israel Electric and the Society for Protection of Nature and Nature Parks authorities, trying to save the raptors, all raptors, and we're doing that by a lot of some of the best researchers in Israel, monitoring them, tracking satellites, tracking, and learning more about the birds. And then when you know, if you know well, then you know how to protect as well.
Meidad, can you just sorry, can you just try and keep your hand away from your mouth and also try and stay more still than you are?
Sorry, yeah. Oh, I can see myself now. That's easier, but I'll do it like this. Okay, sorry.
Stay there.
So, yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay. So, it was still at the raptors. We found that letting the public know and raising awareness is quite important, especially today with the media, with the large media that is available. And we spend a lot of time trying to do public PR work for vultures, which is not always easy. And one of the main ways that we do that is, if it works, okay, through our website, www.birds.org.il, recommended. Now you can see that any given time, you could basically watch live camera of some of the most enigmatic raptors in Israel, and some of them are near our birding center. So these, for example, are two Egyptian vultures, two chicks, quite big now, that live near Sde Boker, and any time, even at night, you can see what they're doing. You can see that they're sleeping now, stretching a little bit. That's happening right now. I'm sorry to say, well, not really sorry, but I wanted to show you the griffon vulture chick that was basically saved by the researchers and NPA and SPNI people, where he's a chick that grew up in Sde Boker, not far from Sde Boker, and his mother died out of collision. It was found very, very quickly, thanks to all kind of devices and monitoring program that the researchers have, and it was found immediately, and it was fed with sort of like I forgot the name, the English name for that, but it was fed artificially, all for almost a month, I think it was, until it fledged today. So I can't show it to you now because it fledged. That means that it jumped out of the nest today and started to fly. So what you can see now is just the raptor, the Egyptian vultures in the same area sleeping. So that's that, and you're welcome to go and watch them. It has become very, very popular all over the world with hundreds of thousands of watchers. So the cliffs are quite protected because they're attractive, thank God. But there are other areas that are not as attractive to people, to hikers, but nevertheless, they are very important for us, for the birds. And the less plains, the less is a soil that basically contains sort of like sand grains that fly in the wind and sink on the ground. And there is a lot of life in this land. It's less soil, and it provides life for a lot of desert species that feeds on whatever is on the ground and beneath the ground a little bit. If it's the hoopoe lark, McQueen's buster, sandgrouse, pintail sandgrouse, cream-colored courser, Temming's lark, spectacled warblers, and more. And some of the most important desert birds are found in these less plains, and sadly, most of them are not protected. We have about, just in one region, in Itzana region, which is the northwest part of these Les Plains, there are about 13 species that are red species, which means they are endangered. So two of the species that I want to tell a little bit more about is the McQueen's bustard and the sandgrouse. The McQueen's bustard is a large bird related to cranes that live only in the desert. There are two species of McQueen's bustard split from the Hubara bustard in the west, in northwest Africa, and the McQueen's bustard in the east. This is the difference is mainly the fact that the eastern subspecies and our species, the McQueen's bustard, migrate. And it migrates from the blue, you see the blue areas, the northern parts or the Central Asia population migrates all the way to Arabia, the Arabian Peninsula, and sometimes used to even migrate here to Israel. And this is where the problem occurs. Why? Because it is very, very popular amongst hunters, especially in the Saudi Arabia and the Arabian Peninsula. And these hunters use falcons. And this leads us to the next issue, or the next problem that we have with the McQueen's bustard. It's important to say that it is not a problem in Israel. Luckily, the problem that we deal with the McQueen's bustards is mainly the loss of habitat. Hunting is not allowed here. But nevertheless, illegal hunting does happen. And the fact is that they don't really hunt bustards, but they hunt the falcons. Why? Because these sakers, these large falcons, are very, very popular, and one can be sold for tens of thousands of dollars, just one. And in order to get them, these hunters will pay a lot. And some hunters discovered that these sakers come in winter to Israel as well. And so we found, in the last few years, we found quite a lot of hunters and escapees, birds that escaped from hunters, like this one that you could see here with the jesses. This is a jessie, means that this saker ran away from some falconer, and we found it, we tried to save it. Some of them we managed to, some we don't, but it's very hard for one ranger to try and deal with all these hunters. They're very sophisticated. They're basically criminals. So what we did here with the NPA, we initiated the Falcon Guard, which is a group of volunteers who patrol all winter, control the wintering grounds of the sakers, and report every suspicious activity, its hunters, to the authorities. And it's working. It's working. We have done it for 2 years, and now we are on the third. It's important for me to do a little pause and just tell you a little about an amazing initiative and a very important initiative that the SPNI is at the moment busy with, trying to fight the hunters, or basically not the hunters themselves, but the hunting laws. And you are very welcome to go into to the website, to the SPNI website, and check it out and help us try to change the laws. As you can read here while I'm talking, numbers in Israel, even though hunting is not the biggest problem we have, and it's not as big as in our neighboring countries, it's still a problem. And hunting, we believe that hunting in Israel is just, it's just wrong and should stop immediately. And to do that, we need to change the law. And to change the law, we need your help. So, so you're welcome to join our fight, and you're welcome to learn more about it in our website. Back into the desert, because I don't have much time left. I think I have about 10 minutes or so. We talked about the sandgrouse, about the bustards, and we talked about the fact that it leads to a problem with falconers, with falcon hunting, poaching. But it is also important to mention that we're trying to help the public to get to know the bustards as well by putting out hides we built a really nice hide for them near Nitzana, where you can actually sit in the comfort of hidden by from the wind and the sun, and using your telescope you can watch them, and you can always call us, and we can easily help you. The sandgrouse, which is these lovely birds, one of the prettiest birds I think in Israel, are the second group of birds that are important for us and that we're worried about and that live in these less plains. A few facts about this pigeon-like bird. There are 16 species in the world. We have 5 in Israel. 5 are represented here, 4 in the Negev, 1 in southern Arava. It's not easy to study them. They breed in the most remote areas and camouflaged and hard to get, not easy to study. And what we see in the last 20 or so years is rapid decline in the numbers. So basically, okay, we are worried about them and we're trying to study them, and we know what the main problems, what causes that. It's the loss of habitat, it's a problem of water and disturbance. And disturbance meaning that mainly during breeding season, or what they feed, or what they come to drink, they have just too many things that prevent them from successfully breeding. And I guess that's one of the reasons we feel that the numbers go down. But loss of habitat is very hard to fight. This is what the NPA, the Nature Parks authorities, are doing. Disturbance is also very hard because it's due to development, but what we can do is try to help them with water. Now, why do they need water? This bird feeds on seeds, mainly seeds, dry seeds, so they need to drink every day. Usually they have 2 or 3 chicks back at the nest. These chicks can't fly, so what they do to give them waters and to balance the water is they actually do that. They fly, they dip their chest and the belly at the water, and the feathers absorb the water and they fly like a water tank back. They can do this for 10, 20 kilometers sometimes, back to their chicks, and the chicks go and basically like mammals, and they just drink water out of the father's, usually the father belly, as you can see here. So for that, we need to make sure that they have available water and good water. Now the thing, if we go back to 1979 and the peace agreements and the army coming to the Negev, then you remember that I said that the army needed a lot of areas, and with that, very, very quickly, a lot of army bases were established, and every base needs switch ponds, and these switch ponds offer water, which this sandgrass just learned to use, but obviously not the best waters around, and I would like to have my kid drinking these waters. So we came up with a plan to offer fresh water to the sandgrouse, and together with that, a student is still busy learning about the movements. Just a short video. I have a couple more minutes left. So this is a project that we did with the army, with the Shifta base, the school for infantry. Sorry, not for infantry, for bombing and missiles and all that. And with the help of the soldiers, funding of the Army for the Protection of Nature project, we built a hide, we built a pond of fresh water about 100 meters from the switch pond. And just a few weeks later, this is what we found there. We found tens, more than 100 in these days, of sandgrouse, like the spotted sandgrouse and pintail sandgrouse, coming to drink from fresh water. So they definitely prefer to drink fresh water than sewage water. And we are now at the process of building another one, and hopefully we build more and more ponds. And the dream is that all these lovely, lovely birds would eventually drink fresh water. I think that might be able to help their breeding success and their health as well. So just another look on this pretty. This is a male. You can see this is a male. The pin-tailed sandgrouse, one of the prettiest sandgrouse, and to me, one of the prettiest. This is the spotted sandgrouse. And that's it. Thanks, Amir Balaban, for photographing. So we're near the end, and we see that there are problems, but there's also lots that we can do. And studies show that with conservation efforts, you can reduce. You can have a success of, but you reduce extinction rates by 40%. And so that's what makes us believe that don't lose hope. We can do that. And for that reason, we're building this day today. I'm very excited to actually show you that the first one to see this this photo of the new visitor center that we are building now, the Ramat Negev Birding Center Visitor Center, at the doorstep of end of that canyon and the Sin Cliff National Park, which is the best place in Israel to see breeding raptors. All the raptors that I told you before, this sooty falcon and griffon vulture, Egyptian vulture, golden eagle, Bonelli's eagle, Lana falcon, Barber falcon, owls as well. They all breed in these cliffs, and that's why we chose to build this visitor center there. We hope to start working and start to be able to accept guests very soon, in a few months when we finish building. So the ideas of this birding center is to have a community-based center, which is basically already running. In the last 9 years since I came back from South Africa, I've been doing a lot of this kind of work with the community, including this, what you can see here in the photo. There was a project of choosing the bird of the Negev, where the kids, the children, and all the local community chose the morning whittier as the national Negev, Ramat Negev bird. It was a really nice event with almost a lot of the community came to participate. So getting the community involved, this is what we need. And just another short example, we are busy now promoting a bird park in Nitzana region, where all about the area that I mentioned earlier, where the McQueen's bustard and the sandgrouse roam. We are busy promoting the plan or building the plan for a bird park that will be that is near. Used to be a sewage pond. Now it's an advanced, a very modern facility, water recycling facility. And so there's a lot of water, and we are hopefully it will be in a few years, it will be a bird park. This initiative came from the local community, which addressed me and called me and said, let's build a birding center there, or not a birding center, but a birding park, and we are doing it now. And it came only because of the local community knowing that they have such a special place there for birds. Promoting research, obviously, we can't do any conservation if we don't know. If we don't know the biology of the birds, the threats, everything, we can't really help them. We want to get all this and have all this knowledge available for people. So the birding center will be also a bird and nature information center for everybody who wants to come and learn about the desert wildlife, and obviously tourism. I believe that tourism is education, and education, the one before, the one below, I sort of focus on the local community, but tourism is education for the global community, and obviously help us stand on our feet economically, especially in these harsh days. So it's not only helping us, it's helping the local community. There's the famous sandgrouse pond that was built in Azuz is one of the best places in the world. Well, I mean, maybe exaggerating, but definitely in Israel, to watch crowned sandgrouse come to drink every day. And I can say that most of the nature photographers in Israel have been there. And Celia basically built a fantastic place, and it's very important for the local tourism to have another sort of branch of tourism income. And that basically, all of it adds to the fact with this guy, which we probably know, David Ben-Gurion, and we believe that we are here to conserve the birds. And there's a lot that you can do with the community. And I can say that I met most of the kids of the grown-ups of today, well, early or young grown-ups have been through my birding center, they know about the birds because I've been to the all kindergartens almost every year, meeting the kids, educating them, teaching them about the birds around them. And they are the next generation decision makers. So they're very important, and it's important to also pass and cross the message that we are not anti-development. We know that we want the Negev to flourish. We know we want to develop the Negev, but we need to do it responsibly, and we need to do it while we're preserving as well. So development, taking Ben-Gurion's vision and putting it together with the conservation vision of developing also the bird life and the nature life in the Negev. So I think I might be a minute later, but I thank you very much for your listening. I hope you heard me well. I haven't heard any complaints, so I hope that's fine.
Yes, you did. You got much better, Meidad. So yes.
Okay. Cool.
Yes.
So I can see there's questions, and I'm waiting for you, Alan.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna. So thank you very much, Meidad, for that. I'm just gonna share my screen and put up some information, which I think all the relevant information from today, with all our websites and also the address if you'd like to donate to the hunting campaign. Alain is going to be asking you questions in a second, and I'm just going to say to everyone, thank you very much for joining us. Be sure to join us again in 2 weeks' time, where we are going to hear about a subject I'm very excited about. No offense, Meidad, but we're going to be hearing about Israel's bats, the other type of winged creature. So that should be really good. And Shmulik is coming back, who we've had before. And as Meidad said, our work cannot happen without you. So if you'd like to make a donation, we really, really appreciate it. You can go to either www.natureisrael.org or www.birds.org.il. Either of those sites have a donate button, and your donations will go to protecting Israel's wildlife, including our amazing birds, and especially those in the Negev. We have to one week do a webinar about the Army for the Protection of Nature, the work that we do with the IDF protecting wildlife on their bases, which is fascinating. But on that note, Alain, I will bring you in and for some Q&A. Thank you very much, everyone, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks.
Thanks, Lawrence. So, Meidad, it was wonderful. There are a few questions here. A couple of them have to do with hunting. So Eileen wanted to know if egg poaching is still going on, and if so, what is the government doing to protect the endangered species?
Egg poaching?
Egg poaching. Okay. There was a question asking where the hunter's coming from, and will a parliament member introduce a bill to ban the hunting?
Okay. As for the egg poaching, it doesn't seem to be a big problem in Israel. We're not really, as far as I know, this is not the case. It does happen in some places. Judean Desert, we know that there's egg poaching or chick poaching is more of a problem. Where do they come from? Alan, which one? The poachers or hunters?
It just says hunters. Where are the hunters coming
you from? You have to understand that hunters are people who have license, and they come mainly from the north of the country, and poachers are the ones that are hunting illegally, killing birds or killing animals illegally, and they come from the Negev, from the local community, and mainly the local community, the Bedouin community. We have a lot of problem with them. we have to say that, as far as I know. Yeah, and the ban, what was that? If the idea is to change the law. And you can find all the information there about hunting, but the idea is to basically ban hunting, take the sport hunting out of the equation.
I will actually chime in on the MK question and say that yes, we do have MKs signed up to change the law. Like we're not publishing too much about it now because we're still in the early stage of the campaign, but we do have MKs signed up, and you'll hear more about it in due course. And I should also mention that any Israelis who want to donate 250 shekel or more to the campaign can receive a school bag from Calgav, who have very kindly joined the campaign, and they're offering bags for anyone in Israel who donates over 250 shekels before tomorrow morning.
Meidad, there's one last question, not about hunting. It's, does SPNI and the Negev have a working relationship with Ben Gurion University?
Well, SPNI as a whole, I'm part of the SPNI, not only the SPNI, but we work with them. We're familiar and sometimes helping the researchers there. We are going to develop more the relationship with them. But yeah, we can say that there is a relationship. Yeah, it's not as deep as I would like it to be.
Okay. Is the Negev a flyover area? It's an interesting question.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the whole country is a flyover. You have to understand that. Israel is a big highway of birds, and it depends when, and depends which season and which parts of the Negev. You must remember that the Negev is half the country. So yeah, in spring, the famous champions of the flyway is not only in Eilat. The champions of the flyway covers the whole of the Negev, from Sde Boker, where the birding center is situated, through the Arava, yeah, and down to Eilat. So there's very good migration in the Negev, definitely.
And I'm going to ask you one last question. People are asking, first of all, people are asking where the Negev Bird Center is located. It is in Sde Boker, at the entrance to the end of that national park. People are asking about places to stay. Will there be housing at the center? Where can you stay in the area? You have something to add to that, Meidad?
Yeah. First of all, the birding center will be situated at the entrance to the national park, attached, very close to the Ben Gurion Park. It's an enlarging of an extension of a building of the shop there, the NPA shop. So it can't be missed. If you want to go to any of that, you have to go through the birding center. And as for where to stay, there's a lot of places to stay. And it depends. And we are currently at the progress of developing a map, or not a map, but a website. In our website, there will be a lot of information about all this kind of touristic attractions and obviously places to stay, places to eat, everything that a birder will need, or anyone who visits and wants to see wildlife. And so there's a lot of B&Bs. There's a new hotel which is going to open soon. Very, very nice hotel in Sde Boker. There's the field school there. There's some hostels. There's quite a lot of places to stay. It's all in the website. And I also, there's a lot of birders who just call me basically, or write me emails, and I can help them with that.
Thanks, Meidad. If we haven't gotten to all your questions, or if there's more questions, please feel free to send us an email. There's an email up on the screen, and Lawrence will pass it on to whoever the person who can answer it best. Thanks, Meidad. It's always great to see you talking, and all the birds of the Negev. We got to get back down there again.
Yes,
Jay?
you're welcome. See you soon.
Hi. Meidad, did you want to say something?
No, I say see Alan soon.
Cool. Well, you hope everybody will see everybody soon if we're
I
not
hope
in
so.
lockdown. Yeah. Well, you guys are never in lockdown. You can roam the fields and the prairies and the wilderness of the Negev, I assume.
Yeah, the last few months were the busiest I had in a very, very long time. We were busy doing a lot of service and making the most of the fact that the nature was quite deserted. The desert was deserted. It was quite interesting to see, and we did a survey to try and see what the difference, how does the coronavirus affect the bird life. It was quite interesting. Yeah, it was very busy.
Great, great. Yeah, I've been hearing that from all our birders and our field ecologists in general out there in nature, and even in the cities, everybody's of course seeing nature come back. Bigadol. Well, thank you very much. That was fascinating. I really enjoyed the preview, by the way. The seabird discussion was fascinating to me. Wow, the albatross seems very special. I'm sorry you're missing them. I can imagine missing those incredible creatures, 10 feet across. Amazing. Yeah, so thank you, Alain and Lawrence, where you are. I just want to mention, we in SPNI, actually your organizations in New York and in Toronto will be mailing out very soon our annual calendar. If you don't think we have your postal address, we mail out 3 or 4 newsletters a year to postal addresses that we have, but we have many more email addresses than postal addresses. So if you're not getting our calendar and you want to, please send us your mailing address. Those are going out any day now. It's an annual calendar of beautiful nature photos. We have an internal competition every year among our staff. Our staff person, Hagar Shali Kunin, put it together this year. Beautiful. We focused on the Israel National Trail having its 25th anniversary, the incredible, iconic, according to National Geographic, one of the 10 iconic trails of the world. And that's featured in our annual calendar. So send us by our email, please, your postal address, and we'll get you that. Thanks very much. Thanks to all of you all over the world, from Sitka to Belgium to everywhere. It's so special for us to connect with everybody live. Meidad, I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll maybe come back with us sometime. I wouldn't mind a thing on seabirds. Maybe you could talk about seabirds in Israel, something we don't
talk about. We can do that.
Fascinating. Yeah, so as Lawrence mentioned, in a couple of weeks, Shmulik, our Batman, will be here. He's our mammal expert, but bats are mammals, and but they're sort of like birds, and they have a lot of work together in the skies of Israel. So thank you all very, very much. Thank you for your support, for your interest. Write me back on my mails that I send out on every Friday. If you know people who want to be on our list, please, we could forward it to them and then forward us their email address. But all these webinars are online. In the mails that we send out, we always have a little box that says if you missed a webinar, or every other mail I think has that box. If you missed a webinar, there's a link, and anyway on our site you can easily find these webinars. They're all recorded. Meidad, for posterity, you can put it in your personal archives. Thank you very much. And so from Israel, everybody stay safe, stay cool in the heat waves and then the tropical stuff that's happening now in the southern United States. Hope everybody stays well and social distance. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.